Klan and anybody else who tried to stop them from registering people to vote, or who was coming around to intimidate the people after the supporters left. And so they took the program to California and took it on a national level. Well, anyway, Eldridge Cleaver and Huey Newton fell out with one another, publicly fell out, while Eldridge Cleaver was in exile. So they started the Black Panther Party, East Coast Black Panther Party, and the West Black Panther Party, but it was not a simple dividing line, because some of the people in California who still was with Huey Newton sided with what was the East Coast, and vice versa, like Elmer Geronimo Pratt. So the Black Panther Party withdrew their support of Geronimo. That's why it took so long for him to get released from prison, and he was accused of killing two white elderly couple on a tennis court. And when the feds, when the federal government, when they implement their national policy of COINTELPRO, they wanted to alienate the activists from community support. So who gonna support a rapist? Knowing that, what's political about that? Who gonna support killing two elderly people on a tennis court and robbing them? Who gonna support that? So they had to find ways to use the worst case scenarios to alienate people from the public support, discredit them, and discredit their leadership to mainly the younger people. So once I was released from prison, I never told anybody, but I was doing underground activities. I was involved in traveling different places. I had so many false names. One time I had a false name, and I went back to this store, and the man asked me, he said, what's your name? I had put something in the layaway, some clothes, and our clothes was a uniform. We call them uniforms. So whatever we was doing, we had uniforms for whatever we was doing to facilitate whatever action we was taking. And so I stood there looking at him, and I'm trying to remember what name I used. I forgot. But then I just took a chance and I mumbled something. And he said, what'd you say? And I said, I said it again, or did I change? I don't remember. But it was the right one, the right name. So that's how much, and plus living false identities affects you mentally. It can cause you have nervous breakdowns and things of that nature. But that's what I was doing.
And because there's a few more things I definitely want to touch on, and I know I'm talking to you because you have such a wealth of knowledge and experience in a lot of areas, But I really want to get up to the point where you had got a death sentence.
Yeah.
Yes.
We needed financing. We didn't have the financing. We didn't have the support, and most of the comrades who was in prison, who was part of the underground, whether they were the Black Liberation Army, the Revolutionary Action Movement, or the George Jackson Brigade, or whatever formation, or whether underground, whatever formation, or terrorist task force, whatever type of organization or formation that was active, all of us was having the same experiences, even though we didn't even know each other. You may be part of the underground, and I wouldn't have a clue. And that was one of the reasons why we was never infiltrated. At all these years, we was never infiltrated. They didn't find out about me until 1981, when I had the bank robbery and the police got killed. When I went to court, I declared myself a conscious citizen of the Republic of New Africa. Oh, we got terrorists in here. So now I'm the terrorist. And all throughout the trial and all throughout my case until the last moment when we made a deal. Jesse was my attorney then, and we made a deal that if we dropped certain allegations or motions in certain cases, certain things, that they would not use the term terrorists, and And so we made agreement to that, and so that came off the table. But look how long I had to suffer under that. So that is how I ended up being in prison. Now I never said a word, kept my mouth shut, kept it tight. And we also had training sessions for torture. Torture has been going on for a long time. We knew about the torture. Some of us already had been through the torture. So we had to psych ourselves out to endure as much torture as possible if we was captured. And all that we asked the comrades is that hold out as long as you can. Some never said anything even though there was torture, but everybody was tortured. We also knew about racial profiling. We knew about this already. The case of Zolo Shakur and Sanyada Kohli and Zaid Malik Shakur. That case became well publicized in 1973 when they was arrested in a shootout, following a shootout with the New Jersey State Highway Patrol. But there was a warrant out for Zolo Shakur. There was a warrant out for a number of bank robberies or whatever it was for. But they did not know who was in the car. They were just racial profiling of people on the highway. So they had been complaining about this for years. Nobody was trying to listen. But now, when you say racial profiling, it's something that everybody know now. Everybody know about it. But still, they want to bring a Zolo Shakur to trial, put her on trial for the same charges, when they never had probable cause to stop the car in the first place. But it was hard. Let me go back a little bit. Let me go back. Criminal law was not taught in the colleges and universities of this country until 1971. People may not know this. In 1971, up to that time, when you went to law school, you studied the Constitution, you studied different aspects of the civil law, as far as trial and things of this nature. But you had some students, black law students. One of them was Lennox Hines. Lennox Hines wrote the foreword to Zolo Shakur's book, Asada. Well, Lennox Hines was a young law student. He's the only name I can remember. Well, there's a couple other names I remember. Robert Lefcourt, and I think James Lefcourt. They were brothers. Well, Robert Lefcourt was an attorney with New York Legal Aid Society. It was a federal program where they got federal funding. But he was one of the attorneys who represented the Panther 21. So the government, over a period of time, started focusing their attention on the attorneys. Anybody who associated or tried to defend or do any type of social justice activities, period, they became under scrutiny. They became targets. The attorneys became targets. And so as a period of time went on, it became effective because attorneys coming out of law school now, they are going into Microsoft, they're representing the government, they're getting directly into politics, coming out of law school, going straight into running for office. And that knowledge that they acquired is taken away from the poor people. Poor people is just left out there. If you don't have money, if you don't have any power and influence, you just cut off from. If it wasn't for people like Jesse Cook who came in working free, Michael Dortch working free, Erica Thompson working free, John Stanton working free, Dennis Cunningham working free, and their friends coming around helping out working free, the paralegals, the legal assistants, the third-year law students working free, until we was able to figure out some kind of way to get some kind of funding. I probably wouldn't be here now.
That's exactly what I want to get to, because we are running out of time. But I do want to let them know that you got sentenced to death by the court, not once, but twice. 2 different times, which is crazy, you know. But you got sentenced to death twice. But not only did you and the help from a lot of good people overturn these sentences, but you even got it reduced down to being free today, you know, and being able to sit here and talk to us. How did that happen?
I did not have sense enough to know what my limits were. And that's how most young people are. If they got the proper guidance, and young people don't have the fear that older people have. They don't know the dangers. You have to tell the child what to fear and what not to fear. Because the child don't know whether it's fire, whether it's a snake. Don't touch that. That's poison. Or don't touch that. It's hot. It'll burn you. They don't know what their limits are to avoid those things. So when I became involved in the movement, all of us were young people. Some of us were teenagers. Some were in our early 20s. And we did not have sense enough to know that this was dangerous, or if we did have sense enough to know that something was dangerous, we was willing to take that risk. Because young people think they're invisible. I get it. I dodged the bullet. They won't get me. Well, that was my attitude also. And I just threw myself into it, not knowing how it's going to turn out, but I was willing to make that sacrifice. So being that I was willing to make that sacrifice, it was already in my mind before it happened. I wasn't trying to go to death row. I didn't have a clue that I was going to end up on death row. But when it happened, I said, okay, that happened. Okay, put that aside. Now what I got to do here? What's the next move? You know, what's the next move? Well, we have to keep educating. So I just kept on doing what I can to educate, to let it be known what I was able to acquire along over the years. And we started having less and less resource material to refer to. But those of us that were still around and remembered, we would write it, or write it in our own words, and then pass the information on. And that's how we did. And I just kept doing it. So I became popular among the prisoner population in Indiana. But not only that, it was Illinois and California, or other prisons. And my name was getting around like that. And everybody likes a winner. And when I started receiving a measure of relief from the courts in various ways, people wanted to know how we did it. How was it do? How'd you do it? Share your emotion with it. What you filed? Who was your attorneys? You know, things like this here. And I want to try to encourage all of you here. The best way you go in to fight a case is don't use the same thing that everybody else uses. You can have the same principle in mind of what you're trying to do, but come with something different, because when you come with something different, you catch them off guard. They don't know, they don't have a ready for emotional response to that. You know, come up with your own ideas. These laws did not come on the books because somebody thought there's a good law to make and protect people's rights. You had people over the years fighting. I studied the history of the death penalty. And all the ones who became the judges in the late 60s, early 70s, and so forth, they were young attorneys who was representing people for whether they was protesting, boycotting the bus, different boycott, attorneys, you know, was involved in that, or whether they was involved in other cases where people would face the death penalty or some other form of imprisonment. Whether it was, well, you had draft dodgers or draft resistors, but you also had people who opposed to World War II and World War I. You had people who opposed what you call the House Un-American Committee, under McCarthy. You had people who was faced, you had entertainers who lost their livelihood because they called them communists, you know, and it was a bad word. Communism was a bad word, or socialism was a bad word.
Right. So it seems like, especially during that time and that period, there was a lot of groups that were formed and banded together so that they can combat or help the social justice in the communities.